So just talk to us a little bit about what you do for a living. Did you talk to your fellow businessmen and women out there?
Well, primarily, I business development in the defense civilian contracting world. We look at opportunities through the federal business life cycle contracts that come out. Could be anything from the type of work like acquisition, training, building satellites, building airplanes, any of those kind of things that regularly come out. And then we position Flatter Incorporated to bid on some of those. And there's a number of things that we can do to position ourselves to win those types of contracts. Most people are familiar with like when Lockheed goes against Boeing for one of the major fighter contracts. Well, there's also millions, probably at least hundreds of thousands of smaller contracts, everything from information technology to acquisition, program management, help desk services, janitorial services, you name it, that the government, and not just the U.S. government, but United Nations, NATO, just about any country will do. And it's really the job of a business development professional to position your corporation in order to be competitive on those contracts so that you get revenue, obviously, for that period of time.
Yeah, so we talk all the time at Flatter about opportunity cost, which is what are you doing versus what you could or should be doing. So for anybody who's listening or watches this later, how do you take that infinite amount of opportunity and funnel it down into a manageable and then winnable business pipeline?
Yeah, great question. And the answer is the same answer that you give to every question ever asked by man, and it depends. Yeah. And I'll elaborate a little bit. And the reason is because every company is different, every opportunity is different, and so your positioning is different. Meaning, I'll give you an egregious example. Let's say I'll pick on satellite. That's like my example that I like to use. Like Flatter, we don't build satellites. So if I brought an opportunity to Flatter Incorporated of manufacturing some type of satellite, that probably wouldn't fit well. We don't have manufacturing facilities. We don't have equipment. We don't have industry partners in that area. Probably not a good fit for us. As opposed to some of our portfolios in leadership development. So if I look at some adjacent leadership development programs, maybe done by agencies that are sister agencies to programs that we have, that might be something, let's explore this a little bit further. So again, It really depends, but the main point really is you as a BD person have to know your company's strengths, weaknesses, and capabilities and true, I wouldn't say necessarily understanding of the customer, but you have to get a sense of your position within the customer. For example, in Flatter's case, for many of our Air Force customers, we have good relations, we have a lot of connections, something that would be much easier to pursue than, say, the Department of Agriculture, where we've never had any work, we've never bid on anybody work. I don't think anybody in our company knows a single person in the Department of Agriculture. So would not be as well positioned to pursue opportunities there in general. Again, the answer though is it depends.
Sure. So if you're a business and you're going to bring an opportunity to your desk to team with us or anybody else, what kind of preparation work do you desire and expect teaming partner?
Oof, good question. So you find teaming partners for any number of reasons. Probably the main one that a lot of companies will find teaming partners is past performance. Meaning, let's say that we were interested in going after a satellite construction for whatever reason. We don't have any experience, but we would probably try to partner with a company that has experience in satellite manufacturing. Again, it's probably not as simple as that, but that would be one reason to partner. And I would say that is generally a very strong reason, because when the U.S. federal government changed their acquisition regulations in 1994, they added past performance requirements. In other words, they did a study. They said, hey, a good indication of a contracting firm's ability to perform on the work is past performance. So generally, in every volume that we write about Flatter's past ability to support very similar work to that. So a lot of times you can't grade out very high if you don't have the past performance. So most companies will generally look to that to partner to make up for any shortfall that you have. There's some other reasons to partner. Another one that most large companies will go after, the U.S. federal government has a number of contracts that will come out is a set aside, either 8A, minority-owned business, hub zone, service disabled, veteran-owned, small business. So if you're a company like Boeing or anything else, and you want to pursue that work, you'd have to partner with a company that fits within that size standard. So that's another reason for partnering. There's a lot more reasons to potentially partner. One is you may not understand fully what the customer wants, and your partner might. Your partner may know the technical solution. Your partner may know the nuances that the customer likes or doesn't like. Your partner may know what's going well on the program today, not going well, what improvements need to be made, what things not to change. The other thing is resumes. Your partner may have writing ability for the proposal, pricing ability, understand the price point. Some agencies are price conscious, some aren't. So if they have that understanding, you may have the greatest solution in the world, greatest resumes, but if you're off on price, you're still not going to win the work. So a partner company could bring that. Yeah, and there's probably a few other little minor things to do that.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of complexity. It's a very complex business you're in. How do you manage all that complexity and get it into something you can accomplish day to day and actually win some contracts?
There's definitely, so, the old adage, there's some luck involved, but you can kind of make some luck with just hard work. And when I started in this business, somebody told me this quote: 100% of all bids not submitted lose. Yeah. So you've heard me say this 100 times, no one, at least today, not yet, is clicking on the Flatter Incorporated website and hit buy and putting their credit card down for our services. The only way to do that is currently as a defense contractor, we have to write a proposal, a price, have resumes, and basically submit something for the government to evaluate and decide that, hey, we're the best value and that they're going to pick Flatter. So we've got to be competitive for all that. Yeah. So in order to do all that, I guess you would have to understand that sometimes it's almost like reading resumes. Like, you have to understand the position of the company. Are we competitive for this? And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I don't know. Is that answer?
No, perfect. So we're just trying to get inside your head. You're a successful business developer in the government support services industry. So anything you can share with us is going to be valuable. So I always tell people this is a 2 to 3 year business cycle. Between what I call handshake and revenue is 2 to 3 years. And there's a lot that goes on in that 2 to 3 years. Can you talk to us about planting those seeds every day and then nurturing them as they go through identification, qualification, capture, proposal, and then finally, after you win, execution?
Right. Good question. And I'll kind of start off with going back to your previous question, that when you look at these opportunities, there's really a lot of art and science involved in it. And some opportunities are 100% art, and some of them are 100% science. And I'll give you some examples. Sure. So let's pretend that one of our customers at an agency that we currently work for really likes us. We're doing good work on it for them now. And they kind of let us know through official ways that, hey, this other opportunity that's very similar to your current work. We really like what you're doing. We like your solution. We like your people. We'd like for you to, kind of look at this and give us a good solution. That's a lot of art because it's built on relationships. It's built on your program manager or your staff that you've got supporting them. They're really well liked. And there's some contracts that you can win like that. And so there's some art in that. And really, you'd have to fumble the proposal or pricing to not win it. So that's one extreme. Then you have another extreme where they're 100% science. And use an example, GSA Oasis. Didn't matter whether the customer liked you or not. You either got that grade, you either had the accounting standards or you didn't. You either had the ISO certification or you didn't. You either had the past performance, size, scope, relevancy, and dollar value, or you didn't. And then you're just graded out against your competitors, and there's really nothing you can do. You either have it or you don't. So that's pure science. So when you look at each of the opportunities as they put in your pipeline, you kind of have to look at every opportunity in that way. And that's why some people, I think, aren't really successful, because some people in this business, they're either all art and no science, or they're all science and no art. And they don't really realize when to be science, when to be art, or when to do a blended approach on an opportunity based on the strengths and weaknesses of your firm. Because every firm has strengths, every firm has weaknesses, that you're stronger in some areas, you have capacity and capability in other areas. And so I generally would like to play to those strengths and mitigate your weaknesses with either resumes, teaming partners, or some other means. So when you're building your funnel, the first piece of advice I give to people is stay within your areas of expertise as a company. That'll go a lot smoother than trying to build on something that you don't have expertise in. For example, let's say you've got 3 past performances supporting program management and acquisition services for various customers. And all of a sudden you say,
and just simply put that in, you can't be all relationship, because that won't win you either. The Federal Acquisition Regulation has very specific criteria that evaluators rate our proposals on. So it is a really strong balance, art and science. So you brought up indirectly a minute ago the Federal Acquisition Regulation. I know there are people that have PhDs in the Federal Acquisition Regulation. It's several thousand pages long. But then also you talked about relationships and relationships being important. How do you balance the Federal Acquisition Regulation and how it says we'll do business with building and sustaining relationships with other people inside the government?
That's a great question. Are you able to hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, so that's probably the most challenging aspect of the job, frankly, is government relations. Typically, your program managers that are on site typically have the better customer relations because they're there with the customer every day. So one thing that you as a BD person should be doing, and honestly, I probably need to do it more, don't use it enough, is leverage the assets that your company has on site. You should be getting information, hey, what's coming out next? What platform is that agency moving to? What things are they, what is planned for the year 2025, so that you're not rewriting, an Oracle 7 solution when you should be at Oracle 12G for 2025. So those are all things that you should probably leverage to do customer relations. The other part of this business is, and we call them frenemies, sometimes friends, sometimes competitors, is the other companies. Remember, sometimes you bid against the same company that yesterday you did a joint bid together with, and that's just the nature of the business. You try to play to each other's strengths, and when you're strong and you can bid alone, then you bid alone, and when you compete, and then it all is forgiven in most cases, and you bid with the same team. Maybe they've got past performance and satellites that you want to partner with for next year.
Yeah.
I don't know. Does that make sense?
No, it absolutely does. And you reminded me, we spent 12 weeks, you and I, the team, educating our program managers on those very aspects of our business and how to balance that fine line, because they are serving the customer. And so they can't be in a formal business development role like you are, but they're still your eyes and ears on the ground. And behind the scenes can help you and should help you write your proposals when you do finally get to the proposal writing phase, and even help you build your team, because they know other people that are doing similar things with similar customers. And so, of all the constituent groups we have, so, we didn't make any of this stuff up. So we're kind of just working the levers of the market as it exists. So there's the 5 phases of our business, which we call as identification, qualification. So ID, hey, something came across my desk. Is it something I'm interested in? So that's the qualification phase, which is it real? Is there real money? Do I have a viable chance a couple months or a couple years from now? And the farther you get in front of that, the more likely you can then capture it, which is that 2 to 3 year process where you're getting to know the customer. Also, on the other side of that, to add to the complexity, is 5 constituent groups. So you're not only managing 5 phases of your business, you're managing 5 constituent groups. So our team, so who is in Flatter that's participating in that process? So yourself and your team, plus others in the company that participate. If they have expertise in a particular area, they'll be asked to bring that expertise into the proposal writing. If it's financial management systems or leadership development or cybersecurity. And then it's our teammates, so that's our second constituent group. Who do we bring to the team? And myriad criteria for selecting those. Are they financially viable? Does a customer know them and love them? Or are they going to be good to work with? Are they going to carry their weight as we do the proposal and then finally win and execute? And I always tell people when they approach me, and you probably tell them something similar, to be on a team, because all day, every day, people come up and say, "Hey, I know the guy, or I have the guy, or I have the solution, or I have fill in the blank." And then you start to investigate. Do you really know the guy? Does the customer really know you and love you? So a minimum of 2 value propositions. If I was ever going to come up to Joe Cabell and say, I want to join your team, I would never come with less than 2 value propositions. And where can I get those value propositions? You mentioned socioeconomic status. That's one and only one. That's not going to get you on the team. You can know the customer loves you. That's one, and it won't get you on the team. But when you combine 2, then you begin to become unique and very likely will be invited to the team. And then if you can get 3 and 4 and 5 value propositions to bring to the team, then you increase the likelihood that you're going to invite them to the team. Work ethic is often part of that as well. So that's the second constituent group. So Flatter team, teammates, and then the customer themselves. Do you know the customer? Does the customer know you? Do you have past performance with that customer? Do you have past performance with that customer? Does the solution you have answer what they're asking for? And then the contracting offices. I know you spend a lot of time and energy building and sustaining relationships with contracting officers, because in this business, the contract shop is just as important, if not more important oftentimes, than the customer themselves in proposing a solution. And then finally, in our case, as we're a small business, the small business offices. So when you start putting all those variables together, 5 phases of business and 5 constituent groups, that's pretty darn complex. And you do have a very strong work ethic. Your team has a very strong work ethic, but you still have limited time and limited energy and limited resources. So I'm going to revisit a question I've asked you a couple times, and you've answered them well both times, but I want to drill down just a little bit further. how do you manage all that complexity and get some wins coming in the door? I know you can write proposals and you're producing constantly, but talk to us a little bit more about managing that complexity and building and sustaining relationships with those 5 constituents while you're managing those 5 phases of your business. Over.
Yeah, that's a difficult question, and again, it's the same answer ever asked by man. It depends, but you touched on all the subjects. You've got to maintain relationships, and some people in this business think that's all you need, and in most cases that's not it. Sometimes you don't need any relationship. They're looking for a technical solution or a certain price point, and all relationships are irrelevant. I've actually seen bids, and you have too, where the customer, the government program manager wants a certain company, wants a certain solution, and the contracting office says, nope, I just went with the cheapest option, and that's what you get.
Yeah.
So I think the ability to discern and try to figure out where that procurement is headed. Like, hey, do they really want an innovative solution, or they just want butts and seats? And if it's butts and seats, maybe on that one I'm competitive because we can go low price, or maybe I can't. Maybe we're not competitive on that, but we got an innovative solution. So there's been bids where we've put in a very innovative solution. We thought that's what the government wanted, and they actually punish us for it. We've also been part of bids, as you know, where we did a really cool, innovative solution. They didn't really care about the trains running on time, and we ended up winning that one because we had to build people on staff that understood the customer, understood the innovation required, and were able to convey that to the customer. So during these 5 phases, it really, so the first thing I'll tell everyone is you are going to lose way more than you win. You know how Michael Jordan says, well, I missed 9,274 shots in my career. And, I didn't make my junior varsity team. And this business, you're going to miss way more shots than you're ever going to make. I mean, at best, you're going to only make 1 out of every 5 shots, at best. People who tell you otherwise are either really, really gifted, or their team is phenomenal, or, you've got a one-trick pony IDIQ that only you're bidding on. Generally. So 1 out of every 5, that's the most layups you're ever going to get. And usually it's somewhat less than that. So part of it is numbers, and you just have to work. So I guess one of the areas that I do is, I'll recruit to make sure the customer gets the right resume. I'll write. I've got Lisa and Oliver that help. They're fantastic. As far as the support that I get to write and price. And then the other thing is, hey, when the day is over, now I haven't been doing this because of COVID, I usually will go up to have business development meetings. I meet partners, other industries, other companies, and just have dinner, and I'll just talk, and we'll share latest intel on procurements, or, hey, I found out the contracting office from that shop was saying this when I met with them last week. Oh, okay. Well, hey, when I met with this customer last week, I noticed this happened. So it's a good way to keep intel. It's also a good way to keep up to date on other companies and their strengths and weaknesses. For example, somebody today was asking me about DTRA and a very specific opportunity on DTRA. And it's something that, we as Flatter, it wasn't really within our capability, but I said, hey, one of our partner companies, that's what they do. And we've partnered with this company before. They're great people, and referred them over. And we actually do, they're part of our business development lunches that I kind of help out with. So, I just one anecdote here, somebody asked me a while ago, like, Joe, how do you know all these teams and, realize that company's strong, or not to partner there, but partner with them here? And I said, well, I just go out and meet them. And they go, well, hey, can I come too? I said, sure. We're meeting at 6 p.m. at, this restaurant on Thursday. Well, no, I can't do that. Well, why? Well, it's after work hours. I said, you don't understand this business. Like, I have to be home. I have kids. I've got to be, at 5 plus the commute. And I just explained to him, like, hey, your job is always whatever it takes. So to do a bid, sometimes it's 100% writing. Sometimes it's 1% writing and 10% resumes or 50% partners. And you've just got to try to figure out for that bid what percentage, because they're all different. And so you just have to network, you have to write, you have to try, you have to fail,
Mm-hmm.
adapt. Anecdotally, first year here, you probably remember we did a number of bids that we won, but we also, you may have forgotten, because I like to forget these, we did a number of bids where our pricing was just totally wrong. Like,
Yeah.
it was a laughing stock. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but not really.
Mm-hmm.
But then you saw later, like, okay, well, we were an adaptive organization. You saw after about 12 months, well, that's not working. Let's redo some pricing, and so that improved. And what you've even seen, I think, is if you have the ability to learn and adapt, not just to your customers, but to improve your stuff and just keep trying over and over. And if you keep working hard, if you want to have improvement, the best thing I can say in this business is just be prepared for a lot of failure. Abraham Lincoln's one of my idols, and he failed a lot, and he came out to be, obviously a great leader. And he probably on paper, empirically, had more failures than he did have successes, at least up until he was elected president. And I think that's this business. You're just not going to come in and win. It takes a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of strategy to figure out, and a lot of art and science.
Yeah, you mentioned several things. I'm taking notes here as you're talking. Writing, yeah, we write a lot. Pricing, we try to price to win. It's a part art, part science, part intel, part guess. But we try to price to win. The one thing that really struck me that you talked about was something I talk about all the time when I'm teaching leadership, and that's the intersection of willingness and ability. This is brutal is probably too strong of a word, but it's a hyper competitive market. Every single man hour, man year, full-time equivalent, as we call them in our business, that you win is competed by usually no less than 3 and oftentimes dozens of people. And the question you have to ask yourself is, as you look at this industry, and you're either in the industry, you're thinking about coming in the industry, or you're thinking about starting your own gig, or you're thinking about joining a company that's doing this kind of work, are they willing and able to do whatever it takes? The long hours, the weekends, mountains and mountains of reading, mountains and mountains of writing, before you ever get an opportunity to execute. And then you have to deliver excellence. So that's the company. But then you yourself, are you willing and or able to do all of those myriad things you've described? And it is infinite. I'm teaching leadership out here in Warrenton to one of our customers, and he's thinking about starting his own business. And I told him, you just have to prepare your life partner that there's going to be a third person in your relationship, and that third person is going to be the business. So I know you and I and our entire team are constantly balancing the work, the infinite work, with life. So thanks for bringing that up. And also another thing that you mentioned was, and this sounds overly simplistic, but when you finally get the request for proposal in front of you, because that's sometimes years away, because you're planting those seeds 2 to 3 years out, but the proposal's finally there in front of you. You've had dozens of conversations with dozens of people. Now respond to the proposal. Don't respond to your insights. Don't respond to conversations that you've had. Read the proposal, deconstruct it into all of its required elements, and then answer each one of those elements. And I'll let you jump in here in a second, but when you talked about being innovative, A lot of times the customer asks for innovation, but then when you show up to deliver it, they're like, not so fast. So I'll pause there and let you talk about reading and responding to the actual proposal.
A great point. Obviously, we have multiple examples where we've done some different things where there's some bids we've bid, won, and lost where we didn't know anything about the customer. We tried something, we lost. We tried something and won. There's been obviously a number of bids where we did know a lot. We knew, I mean, a lot. I won't get into which specific ones. I'll just say the customer was Department of State. And we thought, I mean, we actually met with people at Department of State, told us what they wanted, kind of the sub-program managers on that program. And so that's what we wrote in, and we were literally punished by the contract shop and said, you guys are giving us something we didn't ask for in black and white. So that's certainly a risk. Sometimes you take that risk. If sometimes I'll actually bid something and say either we're going to win big or we're going to lose big, and there's no in between, because a lot of times in this business, there's 6, 7, 8, 20, 30 other companies that can make the trains run on time for that particular contract. They've got the right past performance, they've got the right skill sets, they've got the right people, they've got enough customer knowledge. So sometimes you have to take a chance and say, why should they pick Flatter? And sometimes it's success, and sometimes it fails spectacularly. But like, hey, you've given us a whole bunch of stuff we didn't want. We didn't want all that stuff. We just wanted, $20 an hour people in that seat, and we're not really paying for that Ferrari that you offered us.
Yeah, you're just reminding me of a win we had with a teaming partner, several $100 million contract that we had a guaranteed work share for. And after award, they showed us the hourly rates, and you couldn't hire a dog catcher for those hourly rates. So here we had put in years of effort, mountains of writing, and we simply had to say, no, thank you. So
this one.
Yeah, it's another one of my themes that I've written down on my notes here, and that is the waves of this industry. We've been in business about 19 years, and I know you've been in the business. You haven't been with us that long, but you've been in this business quite a while, and just trying to keep up with what the waves are. You mentioned a few times lowest price technically acceptable, where simply they look at the lowest bid, see if it's technically acceptable. Does it have 4 wheels and a windshield and headlights? Yeah, you're the winner. If it doesn't have one of those things, they go to the second highest. And you could have this beautifully scripted solution, but if you're the third or fourth one in that pile, they never even get to see it.
That's right.
So that's the old LPTA game. And then a few years before that was the insourcing game, where they were reclaiming full-time equivalent contractors, making them government positions. And so that was one of the wave tops that came and went. And so that's another added complexity to this business. And then you can do everything right, and your work can just vanish, right? We had this happen to us. I won't get too specific, but a presidential decision shut down a contract that we were knocking out of the park. The customer loved us. The team was amazing. Very well received effort. And then boom. And I ironically agree with the decision that the president made, but boom, that work is gone.
It was good work too.
Several years ago, we had a couple of really nice sustaining streams of revenue that just evaporated because our customers ironically retired at the same time as the contract was going into renewal. And so all of those years of performance were falling on deaf ears in the recompete. And there was no way to hear the great things that we had done and recognize them. And it was also part of LPTA at the time, and I think this is one of those you were referring to a minute ago. We literally got crushed. To win that contract, I remember it so well. We would have had to walk up to the desks of our team and tell them, you have to take a 30% pay cut to keep your job.
Mm-hmm.
I guess a more mature businessman would have said, got to do it. But we tried some innovative solution to keep the team in place. And eventually the team that won came in and offered the same people the same jobs at 30% pay cuts. So that's just part of this business as well. Tell us one of your success stories. What just went exactly as planned? You planted a seed, watched it grow, started bearing fruit, and you're still enjoying the fruits of those labors.
Oh, geez. I've got a few, but again, I'd like to caveat that with I have 95% much more losses than wins. So I tend to forget my losses and just take the lessons learned and move on most of the time. There's still a couple that sting a little bit right here. We won't mention it. Probably one of my greatest success stories was not a big revenue winner here at Flatter. So remember I was explaining that I do, I usually hold these business development dinners every so often, usually about once a month. I haven't been doing it with Corona lately. And I tend to invite people that I've worked with before or referrals. And we've had anywhere from 10 to 20, 25 different BD guys show up and gals from various companies. Usually we sit around, we'll have dinner, maybe have some drinks and discuss an opportunities, one or multiple that you're looking at, seeing if you can team. And at one of the dinners, a company had brought up that they had just won a contract in Africa and were looking for French-speaking explosive ordnance disposal instructors. And of course I said, well, hey, I'm a pretty good recruiter. Don't mean to brag a little bit. And I've got a French network. I haven't been to French commando school, and I served in Haiti with great Legionnaire. And anyway, long story short, I said, hey, give me a shot. And sure enough, they said, hey, if you can fill our billets, we'll give you some. And long story short, I had like 24 resumes within 3 days. And we ended up getting the work. And to this day, we still have that work. And we're going on option year 3. And it's allowed us to bid and stay active in Africa, where one of our contracts had ended prematurely. And we're still bidding in Africa today and basically setting ourselves up for some larger bids in 2021. So it's kind of interesting how that one little contract that there was no capture involved, there was no proposal, there was no pricing, there was no your traditional Shipley methodology to get that, and it's turned into a 3-year contract for us, and it's turned into a great relationship with the company that we're partnered with. We've partnered on other things. We've gone after some neat work with them, and we've got some big things planned in the future. So that's kind of my success story, maybe not a traditional success story, one that you were expecting where, hey, I did a capture, I did 180 capture slides, I met the customer 30 times, everything went according to plan and it won. But that's the one I kind of remember the most as far as a success story. Okay, well, thank you, JR. I appreciate it. It was very fun and informative to do this chat, and look forward to seeing the next one. Thank you. Bye, JR.